on fire.
Hi, happy STEM Monday and welcome to the last video in our mini-series with Dr. Kelley Lee. In our final video, we discussed the best ways of communicating research-based science to communities. Let's hear what she had to say.
What are the best ways of communicating research-based science to communities? I think if you involve the communities by involving students in your classroom on the issues that they either face or may face in the future as climate continues to change, and the impacts of climate are felt more strongly as we move into the future, I think that you have to involve them in the process. It's not communicating to them what is happening or what will happen into the future. It's helping them to look at data and make sense of data in ways that would make sense to like a common layperson through the student, and then having the student go back and communicate with their own families and their community members. I think that that's how movements are started, and it makes a lot of sense. I remember there's a story of a young woman here in Los Angeles. She lives near the refineries because LA used to be a hotspot for all the refineries. And we have a lot of communities that are experiencing a lot of environmental injustice with air quality and human health impacts. And what they did was, once they realized that she was getting sick from the refineries, the first question they had was, is it just me? Is it just me that's experiencing these harmful health impacts? And they went door to door, neighbor to neighbor, to start documenting what was happening in their own community. And then they asked the neighbor, hey, are you experiencing these symptoms? And is anybody else in your family experiencing these symptoms? If yes, why don't you knock on the door of the next person and I'll go across the street? And they just did this huge, they had this huge movement within their own community to then be able to say, I documented within all the families within this radius across Los Angeles next to the refinery that we're all experiencing the same impacts. And we noticed that we experience them stronger when there's a flaring event of the refinery next to our homes. And then moving from that, using that data to go to council and say, or city council to say, we need to do something about this because we're getting sick, and we have documented ways of what that looks like. So we know that we're not crazy. We know that this is happening and it's a very real problem, and then taking action on it. But the point is, I don't think that it's communicating to members of the community because they're experiencing these issues. So whether or not we use science terms to do that, they're already making sense of the problems that they experience. Now the question is, how do we tap into that agency so that they feel empowered, right? They tap into their own agency to say, okay, you know what? There's enough of us that's suffering from this or experiencing this, and we deserve better. And here's what I want to do about it. And I think the easiest way is to use schools as opportunities to help students to be able to start those conversations within their own families. Because again, it's not going to be a surprise when you talk about air quality, like I did. And where I lived next to the highway, and it was a major highway. It's called the 110 freeway. And I remember a big wall blocking it. So there was a lot of noise pollution, but there's a lot of pollution as well. And we never had access to clean air. And again, when the flaring events would happen, it seemed like common to us. Like, oh, just close the windows and don't go outside for a little bit, or do go outside. And yeah, like you might feel a little bit weird, but you can still go play with the neighborhood friends and what have you, because we didn't know any better. The point is, if you said to me, hey, let's teach you about air quality, and let's teach you about how bad air quality is created, right, from these sources, and then how they impact your health. If I went through that lesson, for me, it would just be giving me the language and the knowledge and the tools to be able to say, yeah, I knew that was happening, but now I can explain it better. And now I understand it's not just me. If it's not just me and it's my whole community, and I'm this enraged, how would my whole community then feel if we all knew about this? And the question is, what do we want to do about this, right? So I think that there are a lot of social justice and environmental justice movements happening that are driven by people of color within the communities in which they live that are experiencing these injustices. And I think that we need to also amplify what's happening with their work and their efforts, right? I live right now in what's called a sacrificial zone. It just means if the refinery near my house blows up, that I have signed a waiver saying that I recognize that, yes, I will likely die in that event, and that's okay. So I don't even understand why we have sacrificial zones. Like, why do we say to communities, your life doesn't mean as much in exchange for fossil fuels, in exchange for poor air quality, in exchange for poor soil quality, and what have you. But I don't think that all my students know about this. And the moment they do, that rage that comes from knowledge is where we then can tap into agency, right? Their agency to say, what do you want to do about this and how can I help you? Because again, the systems are made by people, and therefore then people can also change that system.